Hi everyone, welcome to the second video for week 1 and in English 1302. Today we're going to talk a little bit about William Shakespeare and the play Macbeth. This is our first reading assignment for the semester. Now, you are more than welcome to read this play online. In fact, I posted 3 good links for you. I do recommend that you print it out if you're going to do that, simply because it's a lot easier to read and remember. But you can also buy yourself a standalone copy. I got this at Barnes & Noble. Of course, they're very cheap off Amazon, and it's just very helpful to have something in your hands. At least it is for me. All right, so anytime you read a play or any piece of literature for that matter, you want to think about the characters, the plot, and the theme. CPT, characters, plot, and theme. Luckily, every version of the play comes with a list of the characters. It's called the Dramatis Personae. You don't need to know all of the characters. There are a lot of minor characters here, but you do need to know the major characters. Duncan is the King of Scotland. The play is set in Scotland. And by the way, this is not fiction. This came out of a history book. Well, the characters and some of the situations came out of one history book. So it's history that's been embellished, made more dramatic. You got King Duncan, you got his 2 sons Malcolm and Donalbain, you got his favorite general, and generals / governors were called Thanes. His favorite Thane is Macbeth. He's got another Thane called Macduff. Another Thane, Macbeth's best friend, is called Banquo, and you got Macbeth's wife called Lady Macbeth. That and the witches pretty much rounds out all the major characters. The story starts off with 3 witches, and they appear in the middle of a thunderstorm. And the first thing they say is, "When are we going to meet again?" So obviously they're at the end of a meeting, and they say, well, we should meet when the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won. So when the war is over, when the battle's over. And one of the witches says, that'll be before sunset today, so the battle's just almost over. And they say, we're going to meet upon the heath, that's the meadow, there to meet with Macbeth. So the next time they're going to meet with Macbeth. These witches would have been old and ugly. At least one of them had a scraggly beard and warts and yellow teeth and just, not very attractive at all. And in Shakespeare's time, witches were, a lot of people believed in witches. The King James I of Scotland, believed in witches. In fact, he wrote a book on witches and demonology. And they were seen as being very evil and very connected to the devil. They were connected to the devil through their pets, which were called familiars. A lot of them had cats. One of the witches has a cat here called Grey Malkin. Another one has a toad, and I forgot his name. Paddock. But so you see, the play starts off with this very weird, very scary opening. Middle of a thunderstorm, the end of a battle with all the bloodshed and stuff that must have gone on, all the terrible violence and stuff. And these witches are saying, well, let's meet again later today and we'll talk to Macbeth. So they know something's going to happen. That's Act 1, Scene 1. Act 1, Scene 2, you have King Duncan, and he's calling for a report from the battle. He talks to a sergeant, and the sergeant tells him, man, the war was close. It's us, the good guys, King Duncan's men and all of his thanes, against the Norwegians, who are trying to, Sweynjo is the king of the Norwegians, trying to invade Scotland, and one of our generals, one of our thanes, MacDonald, has turned traitor and risen up to be on his side. So it's our army against these 2 invading armies, and boy, it did not look good until in rides Macbeth. And Banquo, good friend Banquo's right there with him. They ride in, they turn the tide of battle, and Duncan is just really happy, really proud, really pleased. And he says, this is Act 1, Scene 2, he says at the end of Scene 2, he says, go and greet Macbeth with the title of the guy who just tried to usurp us. He's been captured and beheaded, so his office is open. And that's the way it starts. And the play moves really quickly. Just stuff happens, and it happens really quickly. The action is intense. It's a little bloody, but it has a main overriding theme of ambition and how ambitious should a person be. This is complicated by Macbeth's wife, Lady Macbeth. It's okay for men to want to be more and do more. But women were supposed to be subservient, helpless little creatures who assisted their mates, and that's really about all they're supposed to do. But here we see a very powerful female figure. William Shakespeare is often criticized for not liking women. He's called misogynistic, which is a fancy word which means someone who hates women. The problem is when he's writing his plays, women were not allowed on stage. They had to cast men in the role of women. And so it's very hard to write a part for a powerful female character if you don't have any women on the stage. So if you look at his 37 plays, there aren't a lot of powerful women. But here is one of the exceptions. Lady Macbeth. She has a lot of lines. She's a well-developed character. She goes against type. She is given a forceful personality, and we learn a lot about Macbeth through his interactions with his wife. So as you read the play, pick a favorite character and kind of follow that person as you go all the way through. One of our first research assignments is it's going to be a one source research paper, and the source is going to be Macbeth. All I'm going to ask you to do is just pick a character and kind of trace their development. Not hard. I'll post a separate video on that. But you really do have to read the play. Don't rely on a summary. Don't rely on a video. Don't rely on someone else telling you, or if you took a course 5 years ago, go ahead and reread the play. It's not very long, and it is extremely interesting, I think, and it'll help you get into it better. Back to the author. We study the author because when we know his life, when we can understand his life, and I've been sitting here looking at the wrong camera the whole time, I apologize. When we understand the life of the author, we can understand his work better. It's a form of literary criticism, a form of literary interpretation called historical criticism, using the author's life to understand his work better. So we look at the life of William Shakespeare, and remember, there's a lot we don't know. If you haven't done so yet, go back and watch those videos, review that PowerPoint on the life and times of William Shakespeare, and you'll understand that he probably did not have a happy marriage, that he was born into a fairly wealthy family, but then became fairly poor. His dad lost all of his money through speculations, which is bad investments, but then worked very, very hard his adult life to regain that money. Now, both of those situations, both losing your money and regaining your wealth, both of those are very unusual in the time of William Shakespeare. But Shakespeare was a genius. So he's able to capitalize upon his abilities and make the money that he's wanting to. And he really is a good playwright. One of the things he's best known for, well, his use of words, first of all. He's just a genius when it comes to use of words. And one of the videos points out that if he needs a word and he can't find it in the English language, he just makes it up. He makes up words, he makes up phrases. He really is very inventive, very creative, very original. Another one of Shakespeare's gifts is his ability to bring characters to life. He's able to make his characters make sense to his audience. We understand why Macbeth did some of the things he did. We understand why Duncan acted the way he did. His sons, his other generals, their actions all make sense to us, and we can easily put ourselves into their shoes. I hope you enjoy this play. This, in many ways, is one of the most challenging things we're going to read all semester. After this, we do some short stories and then some poems, which are all much shorter and much simpler. But we're kind of jumping into the deep end here to begin with. We're going to hit the ground running this semester and speed up from there. So I hope you get something out of it. I hope that when you run up against a confusing part that you'll ask. Each semester, I encourage students, please ask questions. And students have lots of questions about when is this due, what about this assignment, what about Blackboard. I'm really looking for questions on content. Why did Macbeth ask the witches this? Why did Duncan refuse to do that? So read the play carefully. We're going to spend the first 5 weeks on this, so read the play carefully. Go ahead and get into it. Remember, read it more than once if you need to. Take notes as you read it and as you watch the videos. And when those questions come up, let me know. I'm here to help.